Hello, my name is Katie Hamilton. I'm a health and transformation coach and holistic nutritionist, and I am really excited today to come on and share with you a little bit of like a history tour and some maybe somewhat shocking information. Could be brand new to you because it's not part of the consensus reality, and I'm going to be talking about perimenopause and menopause and the truth behind what is causing these symptoms. So if you're joining me live or if you're joining me in the future, please leave questions in the comment box. I will get to them at the end of this chat. But if you join in the future, I'd be happy to answer any questions because I think this might bring up a lot of stuff for people. So I have created a whole lot of notes, and I might be reading from some of them because I don't want to miss anything. This information is really important and it's actually quite fascinating. So let's dive right into the history of how this concept of blaming our hormones and menopause was birthed. So prior to the 1950s, women, when going through menopause, would experience better health than they did before menopause. So menopause, historically, has actually been a period in a woman's life where they would actually gain more energy, more freedom regarding their health and well-being, increased libido, and the aging process would actually slow down. This is the way the body is designed. And prior to 1900s, 1950s, in the medical journals, there was no talk or studies done on menopause. This was never an issue. And in fact, actually, it's not even an issue in some cultures today. Okay? So it was viewed in a positive light, believe it or not, which I know is not part of consensus reality, at least in North America. Because having a monthly period actually ages our body. When I discovered this, I was blown away. When we ovulate, when women ovulate and begin to have their period, 80% of the immune system, 80% of your energetic resources are going to the reproductive system. And so twice a month, your body is way more susceptible to viruses and pathogens, and it's just not cleaning up and detoxifying as it does outside of those 2 times a month. And I'll get a little bit more into reproductive hormones and why that is, but I want to stick with the history of menopause, and then we'll get into that. But in the 1950s, there was a wave of women in their 40s and 50s who walked into doctors' offices and started complaining of symptoms that really stumped the doctors. So they were complaining of weight gain around their midsection, depression, anxiety, mood imbalances, mood swings, hot flashes, night sweats, hair thinning, hair loss, memory loss, brain fog, fatigue. These ring a bell? Anyone? And doctors didn't know what to do with these women. And they actually, in the medical journals, started giving labels to women who came in and who were complaining: hysterical, crazy woman syndrome, all the way to it's all in your head, and boredom. And they dismissed these women, and they started telling them to go volunteer. You're bored. You have to find something else to do. It's all in your head, which you can imagine if you're actually experiencing these symptoms, that would be probably more crazy making. This wave that started in the 1950s only grew in numbers. It didn't stop. And funny enough, this isn't spoken about, simultaneously men were coming to doctors' offices and actually complaining of the same symptoms. But men, under the umbrella of chauvinism, fewer would come forward because they were afraid. They were afraid of losing their jobs. They were afraid of being labeled, but they were coming forward with hot sweats, night sweats, hot flashes. They were coming forward with mystery weight gain, hair loss, memory loss, mood swings, depression, anxiety, bouts of anger, and they were given the answers that you're working really hard. That it was blamed on their work and to take, to relax more. It's stress. Stress is doing this. So not giving a true cause why all of a sudden men and women, it wasn't just women, but there was more women coming forward, but both men and women were coming forward. It wasn't just women with the same symptoms. Again, stumping doctors, stumping the pharmaceutical industry, the medical and the pharmaceutical industry connect on, and talk about these things, and they could not figure out why. And it wasn't until more and more women came forward and the medical society and the pharmaceutical society sat down, or pharmaceutical business sat down, and they started to look at what commonalities were here. And they came to a conclusion that, well, these women are in their 40s and 50s. And so they saw a sort of common thread, which was their age. And then from their age, they went to menopause, which never was a problem. In the history of humankind, never was a problem for women. In fact, it actually was a moment of celebration because women were free from this monthly period. They could have sex without worrying about getting pregnant. They actually had more energy because that's the way the body was designed. And so they decided and they concluded that it was women's deficiency in reproductive hormones around menopause that was causing these symptoms. And yet menopause is and supposed to be on your side, which might actually take many times to hear this, to come through the deep belief systems that we've been entrenched in, because beliefs, in the middle of the word belief is L-I-E, a lie. Not all beliefs are true, and essentially they're stories we've been told over and over that we believe in, or we think so often that they become our truth. And unfortunately, there's a lot of beliefs in the medical and health industry that are leading people astray and off a path of healing. Okay, so again, until the 1900s and until 1950s, menopause, hormones, these issues were never a problem. So why all of a sudden are we blaming a natural part of our human process, the stopping of the menses and the freedom and more health, on these health symptoms? Especially when men are also receiving them as well, or experiencing them as well. So back to the reproductive hormones. So why is it that our bodies are made this way? Well, our bodies are aware that we are here to also create life. So reproductive hormones have a steroid compound in them. Steroids naturally age the body. They don't just age the body, they also actually age the bones. And osteoporosis, which has also been hypothesized to begin around menopause, is actually everything leading up to menopause, and the symptom is so severe that it shows itself then, but it was happening long before then, not just from the reproductive hormones, but also from lack of nutrients in our diet, in our soil. Too many chemicals, creating an acidic environment, leaches the nutrients and the calcium from the bones to create an alkalized balance in the blood, and lack of exercise, which strengthens bones, and toxicity. It has nothing to do with menopause, why we go through and experience osteoporosis, the wearing of our bones. So these reproductive hormones, the body knows it wears the body down. And so it gave women a period of time, a childbearing period of time, to be able to create life, but it knew that it had to create an end to that. So our bodies are wise beyond what we give them credit for. And so the body knew. So we actually age the most between puberty and menopause. That is when we age the most. That is when we need to be taking care of our bodies the most. Before that is youth. That is the fountain of youth. And the fountain of youth actually happens after menopause. And it can happen during, if we honor and really support our bodies, which most women have not been doing. And we'll get into all of that today. Okay, so much information. So yes, we were actually told that our reproductive hormones are the fountain of youth, and it's actually the exact opposite. And so menopause wasn't meant to be a difficult process, and yet it had been created as this scapegoat for what is actually happening in the body, which I am now going to get into. Okay, so what the doctors and big pharma industry overlooked or dismissed or decided to push aside because they knew about it were three big commonalities, and there's a few more, but three big commonalities that were happening during that period of time that would bring men and women forward to be complaining of symptoms when they were genuinely looking for answers. They were very much misled, and we still are, okay? Because this hypothesis of menopause causing these symptoms is still the basis in which doctors and alternative health professionals are, supporting their clients and giving them false information based on these claims, which again, it's not like someone's doing this to harm other people. It's just, this is consensus reality, so let's go along with it. But we need to start thinking about this, and you'll get to understand why in this talk, why it, hopefully more and more people wake up to like, is this menopause? This doesn't quite make sense if women of now in their 20s and 30s and men of all ages are experiencing these symptoms. Is it really because of a deficiency in reproductive hormones that we're experiencing these symptoms? It's not. So the three big commonalities. The first one, the viral explosion. This is not talked about. We are now in a pandemic, and we are now aware about viruses and that they can cause damage and that they can kill us. And it was in the 1900s, in the early 1900s, that there was a viral explosion of Epstein-Barr virus. Epstein-Barr virus used to be a virus that was benign. In fact, it was actually working to support us and just eating up the small little scraps and junk in the body. And it was actually helping to keep us clean, just like there's good bacteria in our body right now. This virus used to be our friend. Then, and I'll explain in a little bit, like why it became not so friendly to us, but essentially this viral explosion happened. Epstein-Barr went from 1 or 2 strains, mutated, now has 60 different strains. But it was in the 1900s that it started to take hold in women and men. We'll talk about women though for this class. It took hold in women's bodies, and it was either passed down from generation to generation, or it was ingested, or it was just so easy to contract and get Epstein-Barr virus. Okay, so more women were exposed to Epstein-Barr virus, and this virus is incredible. It takes decades to strengthen its numbers. It's incredibly patient. And it hides out in your body, and it waits for a stressful period in your life, which is often when women give birth to their first child, or there's a death in the family, or there's a major stressor. But as life happens, we become more and more stressed. This virus took hold, and it sort of lay dormant. It incubated for about 4 decades, and it was in the 1950s. So these women who were born in the early 1900s were now in their 40s and 50s, and that's when the virus just ended up going for it. Okay, so it went from an incubation period of gaining numbers and moving throughout the body to now attacking and creating inflammation and all the symptoms that were caused from inflammation and the attack on the liver and the thyroid and the adrenals. and the digestive tract and the reproductive system and the brain started to create memory loss, brain fog from the liver, night sweats, hot flashes, that's all related to the liver, mystery weight gain related to the liver, hair thinning related to the liver. These things were not because of the stop of the menses. These symptoms were created by a viral explosion that started to take hold in millions of humans, millions, and it's still taking hold, and it's now labeled autoimmune disease. We'll talk about that another time, but we'll understand the whole thread here, okay? So viral explosion is number one. That's the one first commonality that doctors and pharma overlooked or decided to not look at. Number two was radiation exposure. Radiation exposure. Here's something fascinating about our history that is also not spoken about or we are educated on. In shoe stores, there was something called a fluoroscope. It's an X-ray, next level X-ray. There was no sort of limits on how intense the radiation could be, because at that time, they did not realize how detrimental radiation is to the human body. And women would go as therapy multiple times a month to shoe stores and put their foot in an X-ray machine called a fluoroscope, a shoe fitting fluoroscope, to see so that the shoe fitter could discover your bones, and that would help him or her tell you what shoe would be good for you. Yeah. Well, eventually, a few decades later, medical industry realized radiation is actually very harmful for the body. In fact, we should probably put limits or like absolutely ban fluoroscopes, and that just got swept under the carpet. What that radiation did, it supported the virus. Radiation plummets your immune system. It feeds viruses and bacteria. It starts to wear down your bones. It starts to wear down your entire body. Okay, and the other thing that happened was World War II, atomic bombs. Those atomic bombs are not isolated. The world is a small space. That atomic bomb energy, that radiation went into the atmosphere, and it is still dropping into our soil, into the air, into our bodies. We are still being harmed from that decision of the atomic bombs. There was also nuclear disasters in Chernobyl, and I think there was another place that had a nuclear disaster. Again, that radiation goes out into the atmosphere and affects our water, our soil, our bodies. That radiation was a massive contributor to these symptoms, these new symptoms that were appearing in the human population, not because of menopause. Third trigger was DDT. DDT was a very, very, very deadly toxic chemical that was disguised as your best friend. It was sprayed on all the parks. Kids would soak in the soapy suds of the DDT truck sprayer that would go by neighborhoods and parks and homes and just spray. And in fact, they still do this in some countries. I saw it in Hawaii, actually. They just spray pesticides and chemicals in a truck as they're moving along, which pretty much broke my heart. And so this DDT was disguised and claimed as a nutrient. The door salesman would come door to door and bring an apple and spray DDT on the apple, take a bite and say, see, look, it's actually going to benefit you. This is the power of false information. This is the power of consensus reality. We have to question things. Things like this are happening today. This happened in the 1900s, but this is still happening today. We're still spraying our food with poison. Okay, so this DDT, though, again, I'm giving you the history of why this all came, why this is all contributing to the symptoms and the mystery illnesses that we are experiencing as humans that we did not once experience. And so in 1962, a book was written by Rachel Carson called Silent Spring. And this book was a book that revealed the detrimental effects of pesticides and DDT. And guess what she was viciously attacked with? The same label that women were given before medical society decided to call this, blame it on menopause so they could create something, which we'll get into. She was called hysterical and a crazy woman. And yet her information and her essentially sacrifice to humanity brought forward the Environmental Protection Act so that we started to consider and look at these chemicals we're pumping into our foods, where children play, schoolyards, front yards, on the food that we eat, and start questioning the rationale behind this, and realize that actually this could create cancer, this can feed viruses, this can kill people. Okay, so these were the three sort of commonalities, triggers that were happening in North America that were creating these symptoms. And yet the medical society decided to blame it on you, on your body, on a natural process, and on your hormones. And it was brilliant, because as the DDT industry was plummeting because of this revelation that it was harming people, by the way, chemical and pharma, they're in bed with each other. All of a sudden, the pharma decided, oh, we are going to claim this is your hormones, and we're going to come up with a solution. And guess what the solution was? Hormone replacement therapy. So they found a way to take women's genuine, plead for help and turn it against them and mislead them and take them right off course. I mean, so far off course that the damage is very, very intense and has led to way worse symptoms that if we caught this in the 1950s, humans would not be experiencing the pain and the disease that they're experiencing today. So hormone replacement therapy was born. And then in the 1960s, they campaigned all over, and they basically said, your illness is a result of your deficiency in reproductive hormones, and we have an answer. It's hormone replacement therapy. And women were just so happy to have someone listen to them. They were so, it was not that recent, long ago, that they were allowed to vote, that their voice, that they mattered. Okay, and so that they felt they mattered was really what they focused on, and they believed we were indoctrinated, that especially that generation, that the medical society is God. They know everything. Your body is in their hands. Your health is in their hands. Your intuition with your own body was taken away from you. It was broken. It was like, no, you put that in the medical society's hands. It's not yours. And so that was it. Okay, we'll believe you. Millions of women, billion-dollar industry was created from this. And now pharma loved this. They went from, oh, we can pump the pill into women, but what happens when they stop their menses? They don't need the pill anymore. They need hormone replacement therapy. So they got to extend the amount of time they pumped their drugs into us. These hormones feed the very manner of ill that was creating the symptoms in the first place. Yep. Synthetic hormones is our virus's favorite food, next to the chemicals like the DDT and radiation and the chemical exposure that we all have in our household cleaning supplies, the beauty products that we cake on our face, the perfume that we spray ourselves in, with the nice smelly candles that are not natural, that are quite harmful. You name it, there's a list. I created a list for my clients and to educate them on, and it's 12 pages of what you're exposed to in this day and age, more so than in the 1950s. So the hormone replacement became the answer. Thank you, medical society. Thank you, pharma, for solving our problems. This is amazing. Oh, these symptoms are not changing. In fact, they're getting worse. In fact, now we have a rise of breast cancer, heart disease, and stroke. And in 2020, there's a clinical study that took place called the Women's Health Initiative, and it ran for a decade. and included 160,000 women. And they were postmenopausal women, and they concluded at the end of this study that hormone replacement therapy increases the risk of breast cancer, heart attack, and stroke. And in that moment, it should have been banned, but it wasn't. Instead, they decided to develop a new strategy, and that's called bioidentical hormone replacement therapy. And then the industry decided, boomed again, sales went up, and this is the premise on which most medical doctors and alternative health therapists and practitioners are supporting their clients on. And if there was any sort of change in their symptoms, by the way, it wasn't because of HRT, hormone replacement therapy. It was because some alternative medical doctors or practitioners also would educate their clients on nutritional changes and supplements. And it was the nutritional changes and supplements that actually changed the symptoms, not the hormone replacement therapy. Like I said, the hormone replacement therapy will only bog down your liver and feed the manner of ill, the viruses that are creating the inflammation, that are creating your symptoms that you're experiencing. So that's the sort of history lesson around menopause. And what is fascinating is that I have clients coming to me in their 20s with the exact same symptoms that are deemed menopause. And because the industry was like, oh, well then we'll call it perimenopause. So any symptoms that happen before menopause, we get to claim are perimenopause. Oh, you're experiencing an after menopause? Oh, okay, we'll call it postmenopause. These labels are ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous, and it needs to stop. It needs to stop. People need answers. People are suffering from really severe health issues that could totally heal themselves if they were given the right information. You are not suffering because of a natural part of your body's process, okay? And if hormones are imbalanced, it is a symptom of a root cause. It is not the root cause. And your body is not faulty. You do not have poor genes. That's another one that they like to do, to blame your genes. And from this, because this illness was never addressed at the root cause, it was band-aid with hormone replacement and ignored. Half a decade or 50 something years later, 70 years later, here we are. And now we have more people of all ages experiencing these symptoms, and way worse, because we didn't get to the solution soon enough, and we're still not getting to the solution. And that's what's really challenging and frustrating for my heart, is that people are still being told this antiquated belief system and given information based on these false truths and just straight up lies. I don't believe that the pharma and medical industry are as intelligent as they are and truly believe this. Like, at the root, who created this, other people, I understand, we just follow, and that's okay. But it's time to start waking up to the truth, and it's time to get the information out so that we can heal. And that's one of my calls to action here on earth. I believe it very, very much is, I'm a truth seeker, and I will not stop until I get to the bottom of things. And so I am one of these people. I am not speaking from an outsider's point of view. I had all of these symptoms in my 20s. I would not give up. Part of the reason I went into the health industry was to try to heal myself. And until I got answers, I didn't give up. And I got the answers. I healed myself from something that I was told, that I wouldn't have a body in my 40s if I didn't heal. But we don't really have the answers. And I'm 38 now. So I want to let you know that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. This talk is really about giving you the root information about what you're really up against when we're dealing with these symptoms. Later, if they can't blame it on your menopause, they will then call it autoimmune, and they will blame it on your immune system. We don't have millions and millions of humans on Earth with faulty immune systems all of a sudden. That is not the case. We have viruses and pathogens and bacteria that have exploded because of the very chemicals that humans have created and that they eat. They eat and they thrive on these chemicals, so they have become superbugs. And these superbugs literally poop out something that creates the inflammation, that creates the symptoms, and breaks down your tissues and creates all of the issues that you are experiencing. And more talks will get in on specific different ones, like Hashimoto's thyroiditis, the thyroid issues that are happening, the mystery weight gain. I mean, you name it, there's neurological disorders that are happening because of the breakdown of the body, because what these pathogens poop out, they essentially create neurotoxins that attack the nervous system. They create dermatoxins, which create the psoriasis and all the skin issues, and they create a medley of other toxins that go in and just start to break down brain tissue, liver tissue, thyroid tissue, adrenals, and your digestive system. And so how do we heal ourselves? This is what I help people with. This is what I help zero in on your specific symptoms and support you with a individual protocol that will help you to heal your body from these symptoms and from the root cause. And essentially a protocol will be comprised of foods that support you to kill the pathogen. Yep, Mother Earth has created foods that kills pathogens. Antivirals, antibacterials are in fruits and vegetables. Foods, we eliminate the foods that feed the pathogens. This is so important to become educated on what is feeding the pathogens. Yes, there's the chemicals that we aren't necessarily have control over, but there's a lot of foods that we have control over that we eat. The pesticides that are sprayed on the food, the herbicides, the fungicides, the rodenticides on our food. And then we also need to understand what foods go in and repair the damage, because you got it, Mother Earth has provided us with foods that actually repair the damage that we're told is not repairable. The medical society doesn't look into this, and again, if they can't put it in a drug, they don't want to know about it. Food is not going to make them billions and billions and billions and more than billions of dollars. Okay, so there is a way. I'm here to tell you, I have helped dozens and dozens and dozens of women. I've healed myself from these symptoms using food, minimal supplements, nothing gimmicky. It would be herbs or zinc or B12, but actually 99% of the time it is food that I am supporting people with in a specific individual protocol for you. And that's important because we don't all have the same symptoms. We can't just all of a sudden categorize ourselves like the medical society does. Oh, you have this, 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 and this. Let's just call it this label. Oh, we have a drug that matches that label. Here you go. It's not like that. I understand the root cause, and so I can support you to actually heal it. And I did want to leave you with a little bit of just information around specific foods that you could start today. If you're watching this and you're like, no, I want to start right now. Wild blueberries is one. Wild blueberries in 100 years or more will probably be deemed one of the most powerful foods on earth. It's an adaptogenic, so it supports your nervous system to stay in balance. But it's also like the phoenix. It literally rises from the ashes once it's been burned down. If a bush has been burned down, it will actually grow back. So it is fortified with the essence of the phoenix, so it will help you rise from the ashes out of disease, out of chronic illness, out of pain and suffering. And it goes in and not just kills viruses on contact. It doesn't just clean up the soppy mess and oxidative mess from heavy metals. It actually goes in and repairs your very own tissue that has been broken and damaged and bruised by the heavy metals, by the pathogens. It will go and cross the blood-brain barrier, and it will heal your brain. It will prevent Alzheimer's. Okay, it will help to prevent, because it's going to do the cleaning up of the thing that causes Alzheimer's in the first place, which is heavy metal exposure to the brain, oxidizing brain tissue. Okay, the other one is celery juice. I've talked about this one in other one of my talks. You can scroll down and find other talks of mine around fruit. And fruit is a huge healer for our reproductive system and for every single tissue in the body. Celery juice is amazing as well. Asparagus, the liver takes such a hit. When we heal the liver, we heal our symptoms. And asparagus is one of the liver's favorite foods for detoxifying and providing it with the nutrients it needs because it has its own immune system. So it helps to boost its very own immune system. Dragon fruit is one of the top fruits for the liver. Spinach, providing very necessary nutrients to all the organs. Black grapes are hydrating, and the darker the grape, the better, because it has compounds in the darkness that actually go in and kill viruses. And cucumber juice. Cucumber juice is massive when we are trying to heal our body from any illness. Celery and cucumber juice. Dehydration is a big symptom of the way people are eating these days, also from chemical exposure, because chemical exposure, including the chemicals that are in our very own drinking water. So if we are not filtering our drinking water, we're actually exposed to chemicals that dehydrate us. So the very thing we're putting in us to hydrate us is dehydrating us. And cucumber juice is very hydrating for the liver. Again, we need the blood to be hydrated, the liver to be hydrated, so that the heart doesn't have to, after your liver detoxes blood, it goes to the heart, so the heart doesn't have to pull up thick toxic blood, which is happening in a lot of my clients when they're so dehydrated. So those are some of the things you can start today with confidence. I know they will already start to help you, but reach out to me if you are interested in understanding or having a conversation about what you're experiencing and how I could possibly lend support and insight and guidance and knowledge and wisdom and inspiration for you to heal. It is my absolute passion and joy to help my clients to heal and to see them cross that threshold and to be able to return to the life that they wanted to live, and to know what it's like to live in a body full of vitality, which for half of my life I didn't. So I very much have a lot of compassion and deep understanding for what it's like to suffer. So I have so much love for you. Thank you for watching. In the future, if you have any questions, leave a comment in the chat box and I will get back to you. You can also reach out to me at katieLauraHamilton@gmail.com if you have any questions at all. Enjoy your afternoon and be well, and I will see you next week with more information about how to stay healthy. Ciao.